This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and welcome to the week. Welcome to Monday. We are officially back to normal uploading schedules, and the focus for the next week, maybe slightly more, is going to be on finding those cycle lows. We're finally in the window. I'm pretty sure these things are going to be carved out this week, and then I expect to be getting some long trades on, and as always, setting public invalidation levels, notifying level 3 members in real time with the exact levels for entry and stop loss, and then it will be a case of seeing what the market has to give and seeing how much profit we can extract from it. The games continue, the clown show goes on. We had the US court appeal reinstate Trump's tariffs. So it's been tariff on, tariff off, lots of chop, games and volatility. But as always, none of it really matters, right? That's why the cycles are so powerful, because we can just use the cycles to guide us. Over in the world of Bitcoin, we noticed that Ross Ulbricht received a 300 Bitcoin donation, sparking a bunch of speculation that this is how we all beat the taxman, right? You lose your Bitcoin in a boating accident and then set up a donation wallet and receive generous gifts from an anonymous source. But this is my favorite thing about Bitcoin and why I spend so much time focusing on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is so inconfiscatable that you can be sent to prison for a decade, get out, and then send yourself 300 Bitcoin and no one can do anything about it. There is no other asset or money on the planet that you can do this with. And it's not just me that thinks this, it's not just me that sees this, because clearly lots of others do. This network continues to grow, it continues to get stronger and stronger, and Bitcoin's hash rate, for the first time in history, has hit 1 Zetahash per second. Now, for some context, 1 hash per second is of course 1 hash per second. By the time we get to gigahashes, we're talking a billion hashes per second, and we have just crossed into the Zetahash territory, meaning 1 sextillion hashes per second securing the network. This is the only secure database on the planet, the only one, and it continues to see more and more capital flow into this market, more and more capital expense and investment into securing the network and racing and competing to mine the remaining Bitcoin. Extremely bullish, okay? Price follows hash. It's a very old adage, but generally speaking, it tends to be true. And just before we go into some charts and start to hunt for some cycle lows, I found this, and if you've been following the content mostly daily or daily, then you will know I was talking about more and more of these narratives coming out, more and more hype being built as we move into the final portion of the cycle. And sure enough, the UK is now toying with the idea of introducing a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. I should say this, okay, not that I really follow politics, well, not really is an understatement, I do not follow politics, but I can say with a pretty high degree of confidence this will turn out to be a nothing burger for some time. But remember, that's okay, because nothing actually has to happen for hype to build. People and the market in aggregate just have to believe that something will happen, and that will be enough to get that final push to the upside and that final blow off top move for Bitcoin. So as I was saying all through the last week, I expect more and more of this kind of hype building narrative to show up. I expect more and more speculation, more and more greed and FOMO, and ultimately I suspect not much of this at all gets implemented until after we've seen the 2026 4-year cycle low. But in the short to medium term, I still lean extremely bullish here. And then the big question is, where are these cycle lows? If you ask me, they should be here any moment now. I think any kind of double bottom or slight undercut of this low will complete the 2 drives pattern. You will see me get long out of a swing here. As I said earlier, the level 3 members will be notified of the exact levels for entry and stop loss when I pull the trigger in real time. And everyone else will get told the following day. We'll set the stop loss, make it public as always, and we'll see if we can actually get a breakout. I'll have to be on guard for left translation and cycle failure. If you don't know what any of this means, go and watch the tutorial, learn the rules. But largely speaking, I think this is it, right? I think we're in the window. I think any kind of low here is a tradable swing. It will confirm a cycle low, and then it should be time to see what this market has to offer. I still don't know if I think we're going to new all-time highs or not yet. I still think there's extreme risk here that this is a lower high, which will ultimately resolve to cycle failure and more downside. But as ever, I'm not going to pretend like I know. I'm not going to come here and say this will happen or this won't happen. I'm simply going to do what I always do, which is let the cycle play out and use the cycle to guide my positioning. We know if the cycle doesn't fail, then it's malpractice to be bearish. And we know if the cycle does fail, then it's malpractice to be bullish. So as always, I'm going to keep it super simple. Gold, I'm noticing, is trying its best to work on this breakout here. I've been talking about this for a long time. That's why we played the gold cycle low to the long side. if it can actually confirm here and get a breakout, notice how the weekly indicator is flashing now. So this won't be truly confirmed, and it could easily switch back off again if this breakout is not for real and this is going to be a rejection at resistance, in which case we might have to chop a bit more, find a cycle low in the next window, and then it will move the weekly cycle underneath this one. But if this thing is about to break out here, then that was indeed the weekly cycle. The camel indicator seems to think that the momentum is to the upside here. That's why it's flashing a weekly cycle low here. And then that crazy fractal I've been showing over and over again may well just be in play. And I do start to wonder, also, notice this, if this really is the weekly cycle low, the future weekly cycle low window the indicator is projecting is in here, okay? So it could well be this weekly cycle low flush out. It is slightly too early to get really excited. I think it's also possible that this is what we're doing, something like this, and we're in the middle of doing some sort of bull flag in here before ultimately we break out and go parabolic. So one day at a time, we certainly need to see this thing break out on a daily closing basis before we can get excited at all. But it seems to me, especially given the weekly cycle low has been picked for the indicator temporarily, at least for now, okay, I think we got a chance. Remember, we were using the miners as subtle tells, okay? They were breaking out and leading, and now they're looking to want to continue higher. So I think this is another sign that we are probably well on our way here to seeing that breakout for gold. I know a bunch of the level 3 members are very happy about this. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is the cycle low for Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin ran with a cycle inversion and a lockout rally at this point. You can see my arrows here, I'm counting from the inversion, but back in March sort of time frame, the indicator found a weekly cycle low and ignored this deviation here. And I remember using this at a time as a tell to say, okay, the indicator thinks there's no more downside momentum. The indicator thinks we're going higher. And sure enough, we have. Now, notice how, because we are counting from this cycle low here for the indicator, the window opened up much sooner than where we are. Okay, but also notice the indicator did not pick a cycle low inside of this window. And so I think what's going to happen here is, once again, this is going to have proved extremely powerful. When we got this cycle low here in a deviation that it ignored, it chose not to pick an inversion here, and we used that as a tell to be able to say we're going higher. And now it has ignored the window here. It's chosen to say, okay, that's not the cycle low, it's not confirmed, and it seems to think that we've got a little bit more downside, which I think is really good, because it means by the time we get to this cycle low window, which as you can see, we're inside now, okay? So any swing in a reversal and a trendline break is me saying that's it, the cycle low's in, time to get long. And I think what we'll see out of that is the camel indicator pick the same low as me. And at that point, the indicator and camel himself will be in sync, ready to see what the market has to offer. And then you can see we've got a weekly cycle low window coming up in here. If it's in the middle, that would bring us back in line with the 106-day count. If it's slightly later, maybe a full daily cycle later, well, that would just be to the outside of the window. But as you can see, we're well on our way now to that whole weekly cycle low and double. It's not going to take much before we're at around 150k Bitcoin, I think, and then we can start to look for taking some off, finding a weekly cycle low, and seeing if there's one final push to the upside left ahead of us. In the short term, the thing I want to focus on the most is finding this cycle low, finding the swing, confirming it with a trendline break, and getting long. And of course, in the level 3 members section, as you guys know, we will be adding a bunch of crypto-related equities to grab a bit of extra beta from the market as well. So long and strong as soon as we find some cycle lows. If you're new here, make sure you go and learn the rules of cycle theory, otherwise none of this will make sense. Also, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, follow along daily as you watch me hit these cycle low trades in real time in front of everyone. And again, we'll set a public stop loss level so that if that level is run, I can't possibly come back after the fact and say something silly like, I told you so, hope you made a bunch of money like I did, blah, 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 blah. Right? If I'm wrong, we'll be publicly wrong as always. So other than that, I'm your boy Camel. Welcome to the week. Welcome to Monday. Stay tuned. Let's find these cycle lows. It's finally time, baby. Let's go.
Camel finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his mind.